Hey, it's me, Ginger, and I'm back with the second video about gathering keywords for use on advertising on Amazon. So in the first video, we did this book, The Fair and the Fallen by Brittany Schnell, and I chose it specifically because Brittany Schnell is a fairly established author. She's got 92 reviews. She's got tons and tons of also boughts, and if you remember, we leveraged the also bought section quite heavily in terms of gathering keywords because it's generally the best place to go and look for author names and book series and book titles that are closely linked to yours because they're generated by Amazon's algorithm. But what if you find yourself in a situation where there isn't a huge also bought section? And that is the situation with this book, The Prison Stone. And this is the second book that I'm going to use as an example of how to generate keywords. This book is on pre-order, so it's not being released until May 1st, 2020, and since nobody can buy it, that means there are no also boughts. Here, customers who viewed this item also viewed, because nobody's bought the book yet, and there are only 3 results. So what was probably the gold mine in terms of gathering keywords with Brittany's book, we don't have available to us here. And a lot of authors might find themselves in this situation, especially if they're publishing their book for the first time or if they're trying to generate keywords for a book that hasn't necessarily been hugely successful in the past. They will have the challenge of not having all support sections to gather all of those keywords from. So what do you do? Well, I will show you exactly what I would do if J.R. Mabry was a client of mine and I was trying to gather keywords for them. I'd start off, as always, with Notepad, and I would put in the name of this book, the name of this series, and J.R. Mabry's name, and also the name of the co-author, Mickey Astiru. And once again, I explained this in the previous video, but it's worth doing this because when you put in any type of search into Amazon, the first results that come up are always adverts, always sponsored posts. And if you are going to have people putting in your name as a search term, you want your advert to come up as a result because you don't want another author getting in there and leading a potential buyer astray. So those are the first keywords that we start off with. But I'm going to delve a little more holistically into the whole thing than I did with Brittany's book. Because with Brittany's book, there are tons of keywords like low-hanging fruit from the also bought section. Since we don't have them here, before we start roaming about, let's do some detective work. Okay. The first thing you need to remember is that advertising on Amazon, your advert, doesn't sell your book. So this is what sells your book here, the product page. With the cover in a bigger size, you've got the title of the book here, you've got the reviews, you've got the blurb. These are what influences someone to click on the Buy Now button. Down here, where we have the sponsored products related to this item, this is where your advert lives. So if you used J.R. Mabry as a keyword, there's definitely a possibility that your book could appear down here in the sponsored products related to this item. Your advert, the only thing it's meant to do is get somebody interested enough to click through this to your actual product page. And it's worth remembering that because it should drive some of the decisions that you make in terms of the keywords you generate and which ones are most successful for you. The reason I say that is if you look at the cover here, there is a very distinctive style to this cover. I like it a lot. It's one of the reasons why I chose this book to do this video about. It's got the dwarven axe here, it's got the Celtic runes and stuff like that. It's got these tentacles here. And it's interesting to look at. It reminds me a lot of the George R.R. Martin covers. But it's also different to a lot of covers, and I found it's worth remembering that because if you can find a popular book that has a cover like this and use that author's name and that author's book series as keywords, you will find that your book might end up in the sponsored products section, and since there is some similarities with the covers, you'll often find a more direct flow of traffic from that book to your book. Whereas if you have your book appearing in the sponsored products and it has a very different cover, then like Path of Anguish is very, very sort of high fantasy stuff, whereas this is more Game of Thrones style, might not be such a great crossover. So it's worth remembering that. The second thing to remember is what else you've got in all these clues here. So here, through the power of the Prison Stone, the summoners succeeded in banishing the Dark Lord. To me, this is interesting because Prison Stone sounds a bit like Philosopher's Stone, and banishing the Dark Lord. Dark Lord sounds a bit like Lord Voldemort. So there are some Harry Potter vibes here. And I think that's worth remembering because maybe if people like Harry Potter, they would like this book as well, because there's a crossover. The second paragraph in the blurb, the life of a gentle huff-oak, sounds a bit like a halfling maybe, he's thrown into chaos when he's chosen to carry the stone, almost like carrying a ring, from one dwarf world to another. Dwarves, okay, so this is all Lord of the Rings, like Tolkien kind of language, so maybe that means people who like Lord of the Rings and Tolkien would also like this book. Those are things that are worth thinking about, because the themes of the book are often good ways you can find a certain readership out there. I will say, though, that J.K. Rowling and Tolkien, as authors to use as potential keywords when you're advertising on Amazon, I would steer clear of those two, because they're just so big that the people who use those keywords to promote their books, there tend to be a lot of them, and that tends to drive up the price of them. They are very, very competitive keywords. So I tend not to recommend using very, very competitive keywords, because every time you do get a click, because you have to bid so high to get an impression, it means that it's going to cost you a lot of money, and it's very easy to burn through your advertising budget very, very quickly that way. That being said, remember those names, J.K. Rowling and Tolkien, because we'll go back to that. Other clues that might help you. If we scroll down to the reviews, there are only 5 reviews here because this book hasn't actually been released yet. But this first one by Manny Killian actually has some great stuff. For me, the ultimate epic fantasy was The Lord of the Rings by Tolkien, she says. And I think that's interesting because we mentioned some parallels with Tolkien up in the blurb. Not the only person to think so. Then along came Rowling's Harry Potter, which is interesting because, again, those were some of the parallels that jumped straight out to me. Then she says, and author Brandon Mull came close with another young contemporary fantasy, Fablehaven. Interesting. So I'm going to take Brandon Mull and Fablehaven and pop that in my little notepad. As does Stephen Kelleher with the Land-Kissed Saga. So I'm going to do the same here and put those names in there. The reason for that is everybody has heard of J.K. Rowling and everybody has heard of Tolkien. I had not heard of Brandon Mull before, and I had not heard of Stephen Kelleher before, but this reviewer seems to think there are some parallels. So we've started off with the basic keywords. So we've got the name of this book, the name of the book series, the author names. Let's now try something else. Let's go and see if Brandon Mull really is a sort of author who crosses over and has a good potential source of keywords. It's interesting, we put in Brandon Mull's name. The first result that comes up is Wizard Valhalla by Obert Sky. I think that's kind of interesting because this person must be using Brandon Mull as a keyword. Interesting. Okay, here we go. Here are the Brandon Mull books, Dragon Watch and stuff like that. I would say these look very sort of Terry Pratchett-y with the covers and stuff, but I think all of these might be a good keyword because I think there are going to be some crossovers. So what I'm going to do now, as I generate keywords to give to the author, I'm going to take all of the book titles and the book series name, Dragon Watch, and the author's name and other authors, and add those all to my list of keywords. This is going to take me a while. Okay, and I'm back. So I grabbed all of the book titles here, the book series and stuff to use as keywords. Let's then maybe go a little further and actually go through to one of these books. And another source of keywords here is going to be the also bought section of this book. And this is the advantage of picking an author like Brandon Mull. So with 582 reviews, you know that he's a pretty successful author, but he's not in J.K. Rowling territory, not in J.R. Tolkien territory. So his name and is going to be a less competitive keyword than, say, Tolkien or J.K. Rowling. But there is still a lot of crossover appeal here, and there is a ton of information you can grab from the also bought section. So most of these also boughts are keywords we've already got because they are other books in his series. But as we scroll through, let's see what other authors and series we find. Okay, there's like The Trials of Apollo by Rick Riordan. There's John Flanagan, The Brotherhood Chronicles. Wizard of Fire, that was the book that we actually saw advertised, but obviously there is crossover appeal here. So I would next start going through and taking the book titles here and the author names here and using those as potential keywords. So I am going to go and start adding all of those to my little list here, but you will notice that's going to take a while, so join me in a few minutes. Okay, so I am back. I am just finishing off copying over these last few keywords. Right, okay, so there are various places you can look for additional keywords. You could go through every single book in this series and go to the Also Bought section and follow that, and that would be a very, very good source of keywords. But we'd gone to Brandon Mull because he was an author that was mentioned in the review of the book that we are trying to gather keywords for. Who was the other person? It was Stephen Kelleher. And here we go, Stephen Kelleher. Right, so basically I would recommend doing the same thing to this author. Let's go through to this author's page. Okay, so what you want to do is look at the book titles and things and say, are these going to be books that you think the readers of would also enjoy The Prison Stone? These again are kind of more high fantasy, so not necessarily the most ideal crossover, but I think there is value here. Because the interesting thing is Stephen Kelleher, has a lot of books out there. They don't tend to have a huge number of reviews, so I think this is interesting because it means he's quite a widespread established author, but he's also, again, not super popular. So using him as a keyword and using his book titles as keywords might mean you can get very, very low cost clicks if people actually search for them. So do what I did the last time and maybe go through and grab his name and each of the book titles and the series names as keywords, and then maybe carry on through to the book itself. Scroll down. It's been very slow, my internet today. And let's look at the Also Bought section of this book. Extremely slow. Okay, there are 13 pages here, so I think it's worth seeing if there are any books here that would be good sources of keywords. These are a lot more sort of pure fantasy than I think The Prison Stone, because The Prison Stone has the steampunk, Cthulhu and space opera vibe, but I think there are definitely going to be some books. This one looks like, this book collection here looks like it might be a good one, and it's a bestseller. So, okay, I'm going to go through and take the author names and the author series titles, everything like that, and start using them as keywords. And until then, join me later. Okay, so I am back on the Prison Stone page. I've gone through and grabbed all the keywords in that book. I'm actually now at about 150 keywords already. I haven't gone through the duplicates yet, so it's worth doing. But I want to see some other places that we could use to find keywords. Because if you follow down the route of just taking Also Boughts from books that seem connected in some way to this one, that is certainly one way of doing it, and you can probably find hundreds of keywords that way. But I want to show you some other ways as well, because unlike with The Fair and the Fallen, where there's this huge Also Bought section where there is a connection in Amazon's algorithms, you're kind of taking a stab at the dark here, trying to sort of find books that you hope have a good crossover. So it's worth trying several different strategies. Grabbing the Also Boughts from books that sound similar is one good option. The next one I would do is look at this as a clue. So J.R. Mabry very cleverly put in some specific words to describe his book. And this is something that you should definitely think of doing with your book title, like epic fantasy, steampunk, Cthulhu, space opera. There's a lot going on there, not going to lie. But each of these could be a potential source of keywords. I would say, though, again, using the cover as a clue. So to me, the cover definitely would scream of epic fantasy, because it's kind of Game of Thronesy. And you've got these tentacles here, so that does suggest Cthulhu a bit. But it does not, to me, look in any way steampunky or in any way space opera-y. So that's something that is worth considering, because again, your advert, all it's meant to do is just get people to click through on your book cover when it appears in the sponsored products section. So if you are using sort of space opera and steampunk as the source of your traffic, or the source of your impressions, as in you advertise very heavily using space opera and space opera books, and your book appears amongst all the other books that are using space opera as an advertising keyword, you might find that people sort of gloss over it because it doesn't look like a space opera book. So it's worth thinking about how your cover looks in relation to the other books that you're going to have it appear alongside, and follow those as parts. It's a very long way of saying I'm going to concentrate on the epic fantasy part of this, and let's go straight away to Amazon, put in epic fantasy. Right, here is everything that comes up with epic fantasy. First of all, you have the adverts up here, sponsored post, sponsored post, sponsored post, sponsored post, and these start to be the organic results that come up. Interestingly enough, okay, we've got the Witcher saga. That's really big at the moment because of the TV series. I would maybe not use the Witcher books as a keyword, because you can see from this massive number of reviews and things that he is a very, very well established author. I think a lot of people would use this keyword. It'll be very, very competitive and quite costly to get clicks through with. But if you scroll down, you will find some books that look pretty good. Editorial recommendations. So if you're watching The Witcher, here are perfect books, perfect for TV. One of them is Gideon the Ninth, which kind of looks interesting. Looking through this one, it's interesting. If you look at the cover, the writing on it looks quite similar. There is a person here, which you don't have on this cover, but maybe this is a good one. Oh, it's a sponsored post, so no. I generally don't follow sponsored posts as a source of keywords, because it's, to me, it's like taking a Xerox of a Xerox. You're basically going around in a circle loop. I always try and find keywords using organic search results. Here's Tolkien that comes up. Defiant Guardians. What you're looking for are books that appear organically in the results and seem fairly successful, but aren't massively popular, because you don't want to be bidding after super competitive keywords. I kind of like these books, Sarah J. Maas's books. She does have thousands and thousands of reviews though, but for some reason this book speaks to me. I think it's the cover with the bold primary colors and the font they use. I think this is really good crossover appeal. I think if you scroll down in this book to the sponsored products, I think Prison Stone would look really good amongst these. I think if you put Prison Stone here, it would look probably the best out of all of them, except maybe that one. So I would actually say, hey, let's use Sarah J. Maas and her books as a source of keywords. There we go. Let's go and look at her author page. Ooh, look at these beautiful books. Yeah, okay. So I am going to use all her books and book series as potential keywords, because I think the Prison Stone would look great in amongst any of these. So bear with me a sec and I will rejoin you presently. Okay, so I have gone through all of Sarah J. Maas's books and grabbed the book title, the series title, the author name is obviously the same, and then the next thing to do is go through to the book itself. Instant New York Times bestseller. Perfect for fans of George R.R. Martin, so I kind of like that, because I noticed again the Prison Stone has a very George R.R. Martin cover. Scroll down. I would start looking through the also bought section here. Most of them are Sarah's books already, but as you go through, you'll start to see different authors appear, and a lot of them look like they would be very good matches. These ones look like they'd be good matches. Leigh Bardugo. Look at the font, looks very similar to the Prison Stone, and you'll notice I'm focusing a little on the covers, but as I said, it's really important to make sure that your book appears alongside covers that look appropriate. So yeah, I think maybe we'll go through to the Six of Crows and we'll look at that later. But what I'm going to do for the moment is go through all of these also bought and grab the book titles and series names and things like that as I do. So join me again in a few minutes. Hey, I am back. So I'm back on the Prison Stone page now. What I've done is basically followed that route that I showed you of finding books that thematically and stylistically and aesthetically were a good match to the Prison Stone, and used those as keywords, used the author name as keywords, and then also went through their also bought sections for books that I thought looked good. As I said earlier, you are kind of taking a shot in the dark, because unlike with an also bought section, there is no no algorithm crossover behind the scenes at Amazon, but in some ways this route does have an advantage because you can think more strategically about making sure that your book appears alongside other books that have similar covers, similar themes and stuff. So when I'm generating keywords, I know that the more keywords you get, the better it is going to be if you're advertising. After I've gone through also bought after also bought, I will definitely use this tactic to try and make connections with book series and authors and things that my book has been completely separate to in the past. So hopefully you have found this a useful guide to how to gather keywords for books that don't have an also bought section, and we've got one more video to come where we will examine different strategies for an even more different type of book. So join us for that video, and thanks very much.